Okay, I think we're on. So, welcome to this small crowd here. I think we will, if it's okay with both you, Bodil, we will stick to English all the way through.
It's fine.
So, yeah, okay. So this is a small session where we'll be talking about addiction, and I would like to start out with some of the thoughts I have been making here in with regards to the book I've been writing. So the traditional way of looking at addiction in Denmark is that it is something that has to be treated. Addiction is something that had to be medicated in order to overcome the problems and the challenges of stopping. And the experiences that we have had with the people that we have been dealing with, they are all going in the direction that the urge to smoke is really thought created. And I can say that simply for the very simple reason that almost in all cases, none of the persons that were present at the courses, they suffered from urges under circumstances where it was not possible to smoke. So as soon as they were sitting in an airplane, as soon as they were sitting in a meeting, or as soon as they were together with children or grandchildren, etc., where the circumstances wouldn't allow them to smoke, they had no urge. So this led us to believe that if the urge is connected to the possibility, then there's a direct link to thought, because every possibility is a thought. So the thing that we really discovered was that when people started to see that, and when people started to see that they actually created the circumstances under which the urge arose, they started to have a better grasp of what they consider their addiction and what we consider not addiction to a chemical substance, but addiction to a thought. And when we started out with that, it was as if we got another angle on our smoke stop. And this is what I've been writing about in this book here. That it is that the urge and everything about smoking is really thought related, and so it's really a turnaround in the public view that smoking is related to circumstance, that smoking is related to substance, etc., and therefore has to be treated. And I really hope that if nothing else, I know I'll probably get some scratches in the public discussions I'll be participating in, probably. But my wish is really that this small book, which is not very big, is 54 pages, that this small book, if nothing else, will start a discussion or a debate so that we can have a chance to really talk about, are we really not dealing in the public eye? We're not dealing with an outdated model and an outdated point of view. And if we can get that discussion going, we will have a possibility of really promoting the thoughts behind the three principles and the thoughts behind Inside Out in the context of these discussions. I will love that to happen, simply because that will really be what we call a jumping point that could really create a defining moment. So this is really what I would like to talk about. And then what I have done further is, in order to promote the idea within the health community in Denmark, I went in and became a member of LinkedIn. And last week I had 50 members, and I started to bombarding health personnel, and now I have 450. So I'm up 400 during 1 week, and they are all targeted because they are all within the health community. So I hope that we also via this road here can start to influence the thoughts of the health people in Denmark. So I find that the present situation is challenging, but also extremely exciting. So this is my small introduction, and Harry, if you will take over from here, talk a little bit about, or a great deal about what you are doing in Canada with the work that you are doing with the local people and addiction.
Okay, Bodil, one of the things I wanted to bring up first, because I was talking to a lady in Denver, her parents, she's a parent to a heavily addicted son. And I don't work really in cigarette smoking. I work with the heavily addicted people, the ones who come off the street and so on. And the first thing we were talking, and the first thing I noticed was how worried she was about it. And then she mentioned that her son hadn't actually been drinking for 2 years, but she was still, her thoughts were still mired in that reality. So she had this huge, serious look on her face. And of course, while she was talking from that huge, serious feeling, she looked the shits. She looked terrible. She wasn't an ugly woman, but she looked terrible. And then as we started to talk and she started to relax, she started to take the situation less seriously. So there's your first tip. You're too serious. Okay, you got to let that go. This is not a big deal, you know. So you got to just let it go. Yeah. You're making it a big deal, as Christian says, with your thoughts. And so that's the first thing I want to emphasize to you is your own concept of what you're supposed to be and how you're supposed to deal with it is your defeating element. That's what you have to give up. You have to give up your own concepts of what you see. And then, of course, it has no stigma or trigger to, oh, I'm feeling guilty, I'm feeling disappointed, I'm not getting it, and all of that. Does that make sense?
Well, it does, but still, even if I try to do that, I'm left with the feeling that I should stop, and it's bad for me, and it's bad for my family, and it's overall just bad. So it's hard to let that go.
No, I'm not.
You're feeling that all the time.
I didn't say it was easy to let it go.
Okay. It's good to know.
I just said the answer is in letting it go.
Yeah. I
didn't say it was easy. Addiction is not easy. But as one person said to me, I said, you know, don't take it so seriously, addiction. And they said to me in the recovery group that I do, he said, well, but it is a serious problem. And I said, yeah, it is a serious problem, but you don't have to take it seriously. You see, it's you still and how you're related. I'm not suggesting it's a piece of cake. It isn't. If you go into a difficult subject in school and you take the attitude it's the same approach as an easy subject in school, you're not going to do very well in it. You know, you do have to bring your consciousness along for the ride. So I'm just going to leave that with you. I'm not going to harbor on that point. I just want to open that to you. And the other thing that she brought up, this lady, was she said something like, I'm in recovery. I says, no, I've never been addicted. I just work in recovery. And that's a clue to the 3 principles and the power of it. I'm an expert in the native world, the leading expert in the 3 principle movement in the native world. Obviously, I'm not native. I'm an expert to a degree. I'm growing as in my understanding of addiction, and yet I've never been addicted. That's a clue that you don't need to have all this information and all this type of stuff to actually get to the essence or the spirit of the situation. The easier, the clearer you see it, the more you'll answer your own question. And I'm in a situation where I have no background in this whole area, and they're teaching me. They're telling me what's on their mind. They're showing me what they're on. And an example, I always bring food because I like to treat them. And I brought something with nuts in it. And they said, we can't eat it. And I says, well, why not? They says, well, when you're on heroin and stuff, your teeth go. I didn't know that, you know. I said, oh, well, that's interesting. You know, it's, you know, so you what you're doing is you're looking for a spiritual space, a sacred space of learning, not just the feeling of learning. And when you take this situation that this is a great opportunity to learn about you and where your bad habits have taken you, and when you see how to let that go, your personal power goes up. And the moment your personal power goes up, you're one of the wisest human beings in the universe. It's a nice place to be.
Must be.
It is. It is. And it's within every human being, that potential and ability to have that. That's who you are. So we had on our show last week, Dickin. And I hadn't really listened much to Dickin, but he was basically saying you're living in your conceptual brain, your concepts of life, or you're living in your true self. It's your choice, your wisdom to take you into it. When you live in your true self, guess what happens? Everything is easy. And you see things from that perspective. And answers come to you. I work in a lot of interesting places. The only time I'm effective is when I'm not thinking. The only time. That's the truth. When I'm thinking, guess what? I'm in my personal self.
And you fuck it up.
Exactly.
I know that. Though
we all know that because that's who we are. I'm not saying I love that part of me. I love that part of me, but that's not the part where the answers are. Yeah, the answers are in your true self. And when you go to look in the right place, you'll find the answer inside yourself.
What I have been searching for in this is to get to a place where I don't really feel that I need to smoke. Because when you feel that you need to smoke and you decide that you can't, then that's struggle and hard work. And perhaps I'm just being naive, but I really believe that there is a place where I can get to where I just don't need to smoke because I'm fine. And I haven't found it yet, but I'm hoping.
But I would like to I have some input on that one. Because in my opinion, smoking and addiction is always tied in with a low state of mind. So every time you're in a low state of mind, it is as if you have to do something in order to live with that, in order to compensate for that low state of mind. And I think that one of the solutions is really that the more you are able to see through the connection between your low state of mind and the need to do something about it, the easier it will be for you to elevate yourself up in a state of mind where smoking is no longer necessary. So I think that rather than looking at smoking as something that's unsurmountable, it really is a pointer towards your state of mind. And if you that state of mind can accept that you are in it, then your state of mind will automatically rise.
But if that theory is true, which
Yeah.
I believe it is, then I wonder, why do I sometimes feel the need to smoke when I'm really excited about something or happy about something, just like celebrating?
But that's for another reason. That's the same reason that 99% of the alternative treaters in Denmark are smoking. And when you ask them, why are you smoking? Oh, it's because I'm grounding myself. So every time I take a puff of my smoke, it is as if I get better connected to Mother Earth.
Okay.
Obviously, this is nonsense, but this is how they feel. So it's right for them. But I think I remember too that I was smoking in when I was exhilarated and happy, etc. But in those states, if you really wanted to, it would be much easier for you not to do it than it would be to skip smoking in a low state of mind. So I think that the challenge you have is not really quitting it, because it is really a laid back function in a high state of mind to enjoy being happy, and leave it at that, because you're not compensating for anything at all. But in the low state of mind, you're compensating.
Yeah.
Because you're placing the rescue of your situation outside yourself and delegating the authority to your cigarettes.
Yeah.
And much rather than looking at the accelerated state of mind, then I would say I would really use the urge to smoke and the cigarettes as a pointer to say, what is it that I need in this situation, since I have this urge at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
So you use this as a road sign.
Yeah.
Because what you want, because if you look at it from a spiritual angle, as far as I see it, then in the higher state you are in the mind, the more connected you are to your true self. The lower you are in the mind, you're less connected you are to your true self. And what you're using the cigarettes for is as a spiritual means to get connected to your true self. It's overcoming the division that you are, and the suffering you are experiencing simply because you are in the low state. And I really think that the more you can start to look at it from that perspective, the easier it will be for you to raise your consciousness, and you will see that the urge is fading away with the rise in your consciousness.
And that's very important for you to see, that you're not looking for a result. You're of course you're obsessed with the result. You know, when people have low self-esteem, they're looking for a job, you know, for instance, to boost their self-esteem, or they don't have enough money. They're looking for money but in reality, the feeling is not in the money or in the job. The reality is in themselves. Their low self-esteem is coming from themselves, not from the fact that they don't have money. Because a lot of people who don't have money have high self-esteem. So, you know, it's not necessarily a direct derivative of that type of scenario. And you're not looking to get rid of smoking. You're looking to grow as a human being and deepen your understanding. You know, you like, let's like say you were broke and I gave you $1,000. You go, oh, thank you. And then I give you another $1,000. You go, oh, thank you. But by about the fifth time, you'd go, oh, actually, maybe not that big a deal. You see, so it's not the results that we're looking for. We're looking for the feeling that we're moving in the right direction. See how optimistic that is?
Oh yeah, you make it sound really good.
Yeah, well, it is really good. That's why I make it sound. It's an ice cream cone with all the sprinkles on it, you know. So it's really good. You know, if it's really good, you should say it like that.
Yeah.
You know? And that's consciousness. You want to live in that feeling as much as possible. it's only your thoughts, as Christian documented, that take you out of that. And
I have been talking with Christian about this because my thoughts often have their own life, and I cannot control them.
No, you can't. I can't control mine either.
No.
I can't control mine either.
Thomas there, Jensen, who I talked to, he's in Sweden, by the way. I talked to him the other day. He can't either. So,
No.
Okay. So.
But he is on here. He is on there.
Yeah, his name is on there anyway. Yeah. He is.
I think that's a well-established fact that we can't. But still, my thoughts get me astray. So
yes.
What is it that I haven't connected there?
No, you just don't understand.
Yeah, I really don't understand.
That's what you have to see.
Yeah.
If you work from you don't understand, then you'll, like if you were doing a subject that you didn't understand, you would take a step back and see what do you have to do to understand it?
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. That's why you have consciousness. You become conscious of the fact that you don't understand. Perfect state, by the way. That's what Sid always talked about. See, he knew nobody was understanding what he was saying. Nobody was understanding what he was saying. And someone said, I don't understand what you're talking about. And he'd say, well, that's good, because you're honest. You're right. You don't understand. And he said, and then he'd ask, are you getting a good feeling? And in this case, this lady said, yeah, I'm getting a really nice feeling. Then he said, you're getting it. That's all you need to know. And the good feelings grow and grow and grow if you let them.
If I'm able to
get out of the way.
Reproduce it.
To what? Sorry?
To reproduce it. If I'm able to reproduce it, because right now perhaps it's you who are making me feel good.
That's bullshit.
Yes, it is.
That's honest talk.
Sorry. I can't make you feel good. That's coming from you. So there you know, yeah. And can you imagine? I was with Sydney Banks, and say there was a week that I was having trouble. I was on a much lower level of consciousness than I am now. And I'd go, I'll wait until I talk to Sid. Everything's the poops and it's terrible. I get on the phone and he go, Hari, it's Sid. I don't know what it was, but it was like the power of this love comes through. And he says, how are you doing? I said, fantastic. And I went, where did that come from? You know, but the reality of it is that came from me. I thought it came from him. And that's why I got stuck outside. He always said, don't listen to him. It's inside you. That was his primary message. Number one message. It's inside you. And it's beautiful. So it appears in your conceptual use of your brain and stuff that it's coming from because we're talking. And if I was talking to Thomas, say, who's there, it would be a totally different feeling. And we'd be talking about something else. It's our collective consciousness joining together in this sacred space that's created it. It's collective. You and I are one when we're sharing. You know, and that's what we love, you know. And, you know, when I met Christian and Pernille in Salt Spring Island, we could say the reason we liked each other so much and shared such a beautiful evening together was because we were at the school. But that wasn't true. We just had a nice feeling together. So that was it. And that nice feeling, a couple of years later, created this Zoom room. So it had nothing to do with the school. It was, so that's the feeling. And the more you're aware that that's what you're looking for, the more it grows. And
so the more for the feeling.
Yeah, it's all in the feeling, sweetie. All in the feeling. Sorry, it's not in the information. Yeah, it's
That's
how we.
good because nothing really makes sense to me. Well, it
No,
makes sense in
nothing
some
makes sense
regard.
to me either. That's why I like it.
Hmm.
I don't want to make sense. I'm bored with what I think.
Really?
Yeah, it's limited. I had a very neat experience. I teach in a recovery center, heavily addicted. So the people come off the street, they in a way commit themselves to being in these and living in this recovery center. And the program is voluntary. And there was 5 people there, and we were teaching and so on. But one of the things that I suggested to the people was, I'm doing the best I can to share these 3 principles, and I'm doing the best, but it's still very limited compared to what Sid Banks understands. And then at the end of the session, I brought a little MP3 player with a speaker on it. I just finally got this ordered. You just click it in. And I played one. I had realized I can't play too much of Sid. He's too powerful. People just won't accept it. So I said, I'm going to play 5 minutes. And in 5 minutes, it turned out to be 7 minutes, they listened to this. And the 2 outstanding things that I noted was, one guy said, wow, that's changed my whole life. I've been stuck for 2 weeks in this stuff, and he just totally answered all the questions that took me to there. And the other guy said, I can see why you say you're doing the best you can, but he says, there's no way you can explain it like Sid. You see, so I'm glad to be out of here. You understand what I mean? I'm doing the best I can. Oh, go ahead.
No, but I've been watching several videos, and most of them with Sid, but since they're limited, I have been watching other people's videos as well, and his is clearly the most powerful, no doubt about it. And I cannot point out what it is, but it's just feels good.
Yeah. Just the fact. And so that's very redeeming for me. It really helps me, because everywhere I go, I take Sid along with me, because I understand I'm doing the best I can, but and in many cases helping many people, but I'm really pointing that there's a higher level of consciousness, and guess where it's sitting? It's sitting in you. And that's its message. It's in you.
It's interesting, though, Harry, because I think that if you look at the effect of Sid speaking and other people speaking, I have a very clear understanding that everybody else is conveying a message. Sid is the message.
Beautifully said.
Yeah. So he is really the information that everybody else is copying and feeling out of as well as they can. But none of us has the purity and the direct access like Sid Banks has. So I think it's a fair comparison or distinction that he is the message, and the rest of us is trying to convey that message to other people.
Yeah, and and that's why he always said, what's your name again, Bodil? Talk of what you know and you have experienced. See, that way I don't get into trouble. As long as I share what I have experienced and I know, I'm speaking from my level of understanding. And I don't know. See, I'm in the same boat as you are. And I don't know a whole bunch. And Sid too. Sid was definitely a knowing and being. He definitely was living from the being reality. But this universe, even for him, he was a baby on one level. because it's an ever expanding, ever growing, ever collecting experience. And that's where you'll find your answer that you're looking for, in that, not in the psychological implications of the three principles. You're not trying to get a process to quit smoking. What you're trying to do is get a deeper understanding of who you are and how the mind works. See, when Sid first met the psychologist, now you got to remember he was just talking to a bunch of hippies before that. And we were not interested in the psychological aspects of the world at all. We were only interested in the spiritual side of life. And I've told this story a few times, but when I got lost, and I did get lost, I got stuck, I lost my gratitude. When I lost my gratitude, I missed out on the whole psychological movement of the three principles. And when I regained that old Salt Spring feeling that I had when I was listening to Sid, you know, you could be around Sid but not listen, right? Well, I did that lots. And when I did that, I went back to his first talk with the psychologists at Cedar Beach and Salt Spring Island. And when I did that, I said, I'm going to listen like I'm a student this time, because I basically was, you know, I hadn't heard his message. And all he changed for the psychologists, and then they took it into where it is now, was what the mind is, which is, of course, what he was talking to us about. And then he added, and how it applies to life. That's all he added for them, and how it is practical in the application of the three principles. I says, was that all he did? It was pretty sneaky of him. He hardly changed at all. I thought he had made a huge adjustment in what he taught. And he did move towards the form of the three principles, because he understood that someone like yourself would like to hold on to something.
Yeah.
So he created, you know, a thing you stick in your mouth, three principles, you know, and you go from there.
Yeah.
But the three principles are spiritual, formless. Nobody really understands them. What they are is what Christian has brought to my a sacred feeling. That's what the native Indians understand. That's who you are, a sacred feeling. Not what you want to discover, it's already who you are. That's what the mind is, a sacred feeling. And the more you see how sacred it is, the richer you are. And you jump past everybody else. See, the joke is, Bodil, in 1 second you can jump way past me. I mean it. It's not a humble statement. It's a fact. You have unlimited potential inside. Very limited potential outside. You want the unlimited or the limited? This is the limited. This inside is the unlimited. Which one do you want?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
I should say the unlimited, right? But sometimes you get afraid of the unlimited, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah, but of course I do want the unlimited, because it feels good when you're talking about it. But for a newbie like me, you need just somewhere to start, because I don't know if I can explain myself. I guess you've heard it 100 times anyway, but it's like you're telling me not to do anything, and then I'm thinking, well, that's what brought me into trouble. So if I'm just doing nothing and being myself, then I'm thinking about smoking or something going wrong. Or am I making any sense to you?
Total sense.
So I think what I have been asking Christian all the time is, where do I go? Where do I start? What do I do? And then he says, you do nothing. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Well, that's just, and I'm just back to my old self.
Yeah, well, it's not quite true, because you already see you understand a lot more than when you started.
True.
Yeah, of course.
So already that's that you're learning.
Yeah, and I'm feeling better.
Yeah. So what more do you need to say? You're moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
That's all I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm moving in the right direction. I have this. You could just, what you said is the same for me.
Mm.
I think it's a basic challenge for everybody is really recognizing that if feeling good is a natural state, that we don't have to do anything about it in order to be in that natural state, and frankly, that everything we do in order to get to that natural state is really keeping us from being in that natural state. Mm. And I think because we are living in an action world, because we're living in a world where the intellect is praised beyond measure, and action is really the key word every morning. So it's very difficult. It's very difficult to or it's a challenge. I would rather say it's a challenge to step back and say, well, in order to be at my very best, I don't really have to do anything, because when I don't do anything, I am in this relaxed state mind with an open-minded seeker that really allows me to function optimally and really be at my best. The thing is that every time we think about doing something, we lower our state of mind into an action level that really shuts off the innate wisdom we have that Harry was talking about, that comes out of this feeling. When you are in this feeling, you are really tied up to or connected to the innate wisdom that really will tell you what to do in the different situations. But it's so contrary to our nature, really, to go into this feeling, which really is also a feeling of surrendering. Because what happens then with my control, and many people are control freaks. I know a couple that are control freaks. I'm sure you do too, Bodil. And this is one of the main issues, that is really that you're not really in control, even if you think you are in control. And the thing is that if you let go of control, you're much more in control, because now you are guided from wisdom, which really leads to much better decisions. But it's really all about what Harry said. It's really all about feeling good, and when you're feeling good, literally everything else takes care of itself. Really does.
And you start to see that it grows.
Yeah.
And grows. And the more you let it grow, the more you're amazed. We live in an amazing world. And yet there are a lot of problems outside.
There is.
There is.
And it's hard not to get caught up in it and be worried about it.
It is. But it's also wise to see it for what it is. Not to be caught up in, well, I'm just going to get into positive thinking about it, and it's going to be, it's okay if someone chops this person's head off. Well, that doesn't sound okay to me.
No.
Or shoots this person, or does this greedy act, or so the reason people in 3P don't burn out. One of the outstanding differences between 3P psychologists or practitioners and the regular field, and this is something I want Christian to emphasize to his crowd, is in this crowd of mental health, of these 450 mental health professionals, burnout is a serious, serious problem. In the 3P world, it isn't at all. because you're not speaking, you're not fixing, you're not doing any of that stuff. But you're not disillusioning or pretending that everything is okay. You're trying to get into positive thinking about it. So what they've done is you've gone deeper than the outside world is presenting. And you come back to yourself. It's what's the good of getting bummed out about a situation in Africa. You haven't helped the situation in Africa at all. And you become bummed out yourself. Well, you start to see that's not a wise route to mental health.
But how does that tie in with empathy?
It is empathy. It is empathy. But there's a difference between empathy and sympathy. Sympathy is you see somebody going down, bummed out, and you go down and meet them at that level. A lot of women do this. And they're all in agreement. Men are poops, or something like that. That's sympathy. So they've all come down. Empathy or compassion, same word, different word for this, is you feel sorry for the person who is going through that because you understand you yourself, if you were going through that, would be very difficult for you. Say you were in Africa and you had no food on the table for your kids. Oh, you're a mother. Of course it's going to affect you, and that. So you have compassion or empathy for the situation, but you don't go down yourself. You keep your mental health, your state of mind in a healthy position. So there's a relative difference between one's an unwise way to experience depression and sadness and cruelty and greed in the world, and the other is a wise way to do it. And of course, if you don't have empathy, I would have to say you're a lousy human being. Honestly, I'd have to say that. I would, but if you bum yourself out in the situation, I'd say you're a fool.
Yeah.
And that's why people go to techniques and approaches. And it's why the psychology field in Denmark is out so high, because they don't understand that. So they're lying, they're pretending. It's a protective mechanism that is going to burn them out. You're trying so hard. And, if I come to you and say, I have your answer that will fix your problem. And if you listen to me and pay me money and come to me, I'll fix your problem. And I come to you and say, I have no idea whether I can fix your problem, but I do understand where the answer lies, and it lies in you and not in me. Can you see the difference?
It's a huge difference, yeah.
Yeah, huge. There's no stress. And I'm even saying to you, I'm a relatively high level of consciousness, zip in comparison to Sid Banks. So I don't even have to pretend on that level. I don't have to pretend that I'm higher than you, because I know we're collectively in that universal state of consciousness. I'm talking to a beautiful person who wants a beautiful feeling, and the same for me. I want a beautiful feeling too. That's all I'm talking about. One's, you got a problem, I'm going to fix it. The other is, we're going to go to a beautiful feeling, and that's going to fix it. See the difference?
Yeah, because I actually used to be a therapist myself. And I felt it was a huge responsibility, because when people came to me and they were in a mess, I thought I have to do something, and I hope I'm good enough. And it was a huge responsibility. And also hearing about all these terrible things that people have experienced, it bumped me out. I couldn't bear it.
Yeah.
Mostly the responsibility, and that if I couldn't help them, I had.
What's the point?
Yeah.
Money? No, it wasn't money. Money wasn't good enough. So I'm going to, although I've talked a lot, I want to tell this little story. So when I worked a lot in the native Indian community, and there was one area that I was especially terrible at, really bad, and I knew it, and I didn't like to go into it. Guess what that area was? Addiction. Alcoholism has wiped out the native Indian people, it's a big problem. And I, of course, in what I do, I would come up with it. And the problem was, my level of understanding was too low. Just my level of, so I hadn't heard what Sid was talking about, even though I'd been listening to him for a long time. I hadn't heard what he was talking about so I would try to fix their space, fix their problem. And within that, I noticed that they felt guilty. They always felt guilty. And so I tried to fix their problem. And at the end of it, I always felt frustrated and disappointed because I could see that actually I was really no help at all. And I myself had, like you talked about, I felt really bad. I just didn't seem to, I really didn't really offer anything of very much value. So you can imagine my surprise when I'm now fast forward and I'm sitting at home. I'm very content and happy, but I feel like I wouldn't mind getting a little more involved in something. And I get a phone call the next day, and this guy says, I have this addiction recovery center program, and I'd like you to take it over because I have another job. And he says, well, do you want to? And I said, well, I kind of just asked the Great Spirit for a little suggestion, in this area, but it's my worst area, So I said, yeah, I'll give it a try. The difference was I was on a different level of consciousness now, and I just talked to the mental health of the person. I didn't really care about their addiction or anything. And I started to see, wow, this is a great crowd to teach to. Great. They really want it. How many crowds want it? Christians going to the mental health thing, very few of them really want it. They want what they have, make their money, and they'll take a little added grease to the job. But so all of a sudden I had found my niche. One time in my life, the worst area, all of a sudden, fantastic area of sharing. And I loved it. And I shut my mind down and I just got into it. And I just grew like astronomically, and projects started popping up, stuff just happening, Zoom room all over the world, talking in London. All it came from was that I had just opened up.
Can I digress a little and ask a curious question?
Sure.
Because now you're talking about you're working with Native Americans, and I used to be so fascinated by Indians when I was younger, and I wrote small stories about them and stuff like that. And what I was mostly fascinated about was their great spiritual world. And then how does that connect with them often ending up in these alcohol addiction? Is that great spiritual world not a help to them in this?
It's what's allowed them to survive.
Okay.
We try to assimilate and destroy them, white people. So it's what allowed them to survive. But the answer still lies in the right use of the principles. And the right use of the principles mean in their teaching, but it's got lost a little bit, is that purity of thought has to be brought along in the journey. So if you're thinking a whole bunch of trauma experiences, and they have more trauma than anybody I've ever seen in my whole life, then you're going to keep reliving it until you have a spiritual insight where you see, I have this gift. See, they have a gift. You know what the gift is? silence. They can step into the silence easily. But when they come out of the silence, they think the old thoughts.
So the thing that they can step into the silence easily, is that because of their culture, or am I missing something?
Partly, just part of who is because of who they are.
Yeah.
Danes have gifts. Indians have gifts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, different gifts. You know, Danes, engineer type people or whatever, but they're very interested in this, in the mystical side of life, because they were Vikings, and it all comes from your culture back in time. So the Danes are surprisingly mystical. I was shocked when I made my last trip around Denmark visiting people. Everybody was interested in the mystical side of the principles, or the mystical side of life. So you're absolutely on the right track with what you're thinking and feeling right now. That's where you'll find your answer.
But I've heard you say that before, that you found that Danes were very interested in the mystical side, and it's so funny, because we see ourselves as very rational people and prone to science, and so and we don't like to, you know, we don't like to flaunt our religiousness at all. We have to be critical about religion, and so it's funny that you have seen that.
I have definitely seen it, and I'm very pleased about it. And I feel it's part of the reason that this Zoom room is happening. It's because of that. Obviously, I'm rich in that flavor, and so, you know, it's something that connects with the Danes, because it's who you are. It's part of your culture and heritage, and that, you know, the paganism that you're talking about. Sid loved the native feeling, loved it. We talked about it big time. The only thing that happened was I was too low level. He had bigger fish to fry. They were called psychologists. And so he had to go where the action was. Makes sense, eh? He's only going to be alive for so long. And, you know, if he was going to wait for me, he'd wait a long time. And, so how it works, I'm going to give you an image, a metaphor, how it works. Every time you become richer in your understanding of the spiritual aspects of the three principles, you get a stronger understanding of the mystical side of life. And every time I experience a deeper experience of the mystical side of native spirituality, I get a deeper understanding of the mystical side of the principles. They work like that. I feel very lucky. I actually have 2 teachers. But it's my way my mind is. You see, I didn't pretend that I had to be a psychologist. Excuse me for a second. Hope that's... Hello? Oh, I'm right in the middle of a talk, but I'll give you a call in a few minutes. Okay. My tennis buddy. Excuse me. Very important discussion. Yeah. So, and I just want to emphasize, that's what the rabbi said. There was at London, there was an incredible discussion. They had the rabbi, the imam, the Muslim, and Elsie, all 3 talking about the universality of religion or the oneness of life. And the rabbi, when I went for dinner at his place, he would talk about when he got a deeper understanding of Judaism, he understood the 3 principles more. And when he got a deeper understanding of the 3 principles, he understood his Judaism more. See, Judaism was just an expression of the 3 principles as he chose to experience it. That's what you're doing. You're a Danish woman with an understanding of what that is, the mystical side of life. And the concept that the Danish people have is the frustration they experience, because whenever it doesn't go according to form, I notice they get angry very quickly. really drop their cookies real fast. For such calm people, that it sure can get angry quickly. So you can see there's a conflict. The conflict is with who they are, the mystical side of who they are. And so every Dane that I've talked to has appreciated my talk on native spirituality, because that's who they are. You can pretend all you want, but it's still a fact. If you like it, you like it. That's all I know. That's my whole philosophy in a nutshell. If I like it, I'm going to do it. If I don't like it, let it go.
Okay.
And that's about as deep as I get on one level. Yet, when I go at the end of the month, I've been invited to come up to a camp in a remote native community. I'll be sharing native spirituality there, and my understanding of the three principles in a certain way. But I'll also bring up a rubberized kayak, kids, and stuff like that. So I'm going to have fun. And yes, I am going to eat a lot of great salmon and stuff like that, but fresh, pulled out of the lake and stuff like that. So it's going to be a great time, and I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, I like playing that world. I'm comfortable in it. But it's no different than visiting Pernille and Christian at their house.
Okay.
If there's a good feeling, that's all we really needed. And this room evolved because we didn't follow our conceptual mind. Everything messed up at the end of our trip. And because of that, this room evolved. So don't get caught up in it has to be a certain way.
That's good advice for me.
Okay.
You don't know how good it is.
Good advice for me too.
Okay. Is that the note we are going to end this conversation on? I think, isn't that, are we in agreement? This is probably a perfect time.
Perfect time.
And I'd like to say, I think that it has been a beautiful talk.
Oh,
and I am particularly happy that Bodil was participating.
You bet. And Thomas, you too. Good to see you. Really, really enjoyed our talk last time.
Me too. Good to see you too. I've been driving all. It's been a wonderful
Hello, Thomas. Hello, Thomas.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
Did you have a chance to hear what we were talking about?
I hope to participate again, but sorry, I couldn't hear you.
No, okay, but it has been recorded, and I will give you the address on the recording.
Yeah, but I could hear you loud and clearly. It was beautiful.
Okay.
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for coming, Thomas. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
The room is beginning, but it has high quality feelings, and
absolutely.
Yeah.
Det var väldigt trevligt att ha besök av Sverige.
Ja, kul.
Ja, det var kul.
Ja, tack. Vi får prata mer snart.
Ja, vi gör det. Du kan mejla mig, så kan vi ta en snack också på Zoom om du vill.
Absolut. Kul.
Ja,
Gör gärna. Ja, trevligt. Okej. Tack för idag.
Farväl, Thomas.
Hej, Bodil.
Tack.
Hej. Hvordan går det med min bog?
Jeg er slet ikke begyndt på den endnu.
Du kan glæde dig. Hej så længe.
Hej.
Thank you.